From the movements involved in pro and recreational sport, to the exercises you're performing in the gym, to the normal daily activities that you perform, all of these things have one thing in common. They're built from a series of fundamental movement patterns. These movement patterns, if practiced well, are going to build a foundation for injury prevention and improve physical performance. In the How to Move series, I'm going to show you exactly how to perform these fundamental movement patterns so that you can move your best. Hi guys, welcome back to Stout Sport Performance. I'm Austin Stout, and in today's video we're going to talk about the fundamental movement pattern of pulling. Now what gets really interesting when we talk about pulling and pushing is those movement patterns are going to place us in really similar positions. In fact, I would argue that if you're performing a row correctly, for example, we're going to do some TRX rows here, that's a pulling motion. If we were to take my body position, just flip me around so that it looked like I was performing something on the ground, it's going to look a lot like a push-up. So whenever we practice our pulling, I want us to think about in the same respect that we're practicing our pushing as well. The muscular action is a little bit different. There's some different sides of our body working in different ways, but the positions that we take in pushing and pulling are really going to be similar. Now we can push horizontally, we can also push vertically, we can do the same with our pulling actions. I think it's easier to learn these fundamental movement patterns in a horizontal fashion. So we're going to do that with this TRX row here. We're going to give a good example of a good pulling pattern. Now before we do that, we got our handy dandy stick here and sweatshirt, and this is going to help us mimic this idea of external rotation and why it's important here in the shoulder joint. So we talked about that in the squatting video of why this idea of external rotation here is going to be really important, so that we lose less energy and we also have some greater stability in our hip when we perform squatting patterns. And the same is going to be true here with our shoulders. And when we talk about here our upper arm or the humerus and how that's going to enter into our shoulder joint, if we fail to have external rotation in the shoulder, it's going to be nice and easy for this bone, this humerus, to pop out of that joint. Now this is especially true actually for the shoulder joint because it tends to be relatively unstable. People have tons of stability problems with their shoulder. You have a lot of freedom to move in this shoulder, and unfortunately that means it can be a little bit more difficult to stabilize, unlike the hip. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to externally rotate here our arm so that we have that nice, tight, and compact shoulder joint to allow us to move as efficiently as we can and also as safe as we can. And that's going to be mimicked by this external rotation here of our shoulders. So now we're actually going to talk about our rowing. Now one of the most important things here is that we continue to go through that bracing sequence. We continue to squeeze our glutes because we want to move here as one. We want our body to move as one unit here. Now get into a position when you try this on your own so that you can perform about 15 to 20 repetitions without needing to take a break, without being overly fatigued. Remember, we're not training this movement yet, we're just performing this movement pattern. So we're going to engage our shoulders before we start. We've gone through that bracing sequence. Our core is braced, our glutes are engaged. And then once our shoulders are pulled back and engaged, we're going to slowly come back to that starting position. Big sign here, we don't want to be in a position like this with a rounded back. Pull the shoulders back. That's also going to make sure and ensure that we're working here primarily with our back and less with our biceps. Now once we're here, think about a little bit of extra external rotation here in the arms. I'll go through that one more time. I know it's a small motion. A little bit of external rotation, and then we're going to perform this row, rowing at about a 90-degree angle, a perpendicular angle to the line of our body here. Now again, if we were to imagine that my hands were on the ground, this action would look a lot like a push-up. So don't forget this. This pulling motion is basically going to be our pushing motion. We're just working with a different set of muscles when we perform our pulling versus our pushing. So thank you guys for watching. That's the fundamental movement pattern of pulling. Come back next time for the fundamental movement pattern of pushing, and be sure to hit that subscribe button.